Guys who married bridezillas, what happened after the wedding? Got into a huge fight about broccoli on the honeymoon, all my fault of course. I knew then it was a mistake, toughed it out for 2 more years of abuse before I left. So glad I did. How was the broccoli your fault exactly? Because I hadn't previously disclosed that I liked it. We didn't even have any. I learned a lot about narcissism, mental illness and substance abuse during the next 2 years and have avoided them since. Good life lesson. You didn't disclose that beforehand. WTF, you monster. I didn't marry the bridezilla, but I had coordinated her wedding. We had a death in the family, 6-month-old baby, a few days prior to the wedding. I called the bride and told her the situation, and said that my assistant would be stepping in for me so that I could attend the funeral. She told me to send my assistant to the funeral and that I had better be at her wedding. I told her I would be sending her a refund and that no one would be coming to her wedding. The groom ended up leaving her after this whole thing went down, suffice to say he really dodged a bullet there. First wife was a bridezilla. During the honeymoon she realized she was married and the wedding day was history. She wanted the big wedding, which she had, not the marriage. The next 2 years were hell until she finally tapped out. I was young and stupid and the thought of divorce never crossed my mind. I don't know why it didn't. I guess I just assumed I'd be miserable the rest of my life. When she told me she was leaving, it felt as if the weight of the world was off of my shoulders. On a happy note, her parents were still paying off the wedding when we divorced. That's what happens when you allow your daughter everything she wanted, including 2 wedding dresses. I've seen people do this with a ceremony dress that is more formal to be worn during the ceremony and a reception dress that is changed into for the reception. IRC, it's seen as a compromise for brides who may want to get married in a specific setting where the dress code is more formally defined but then have a reception at a different venue. The idea though is that ceremony dress is the most expensive and the reception dress is just a nice white dress you could wear again. It's honestly not a terrible idea if you specifically want to look a certain way for the ceremony and pictures, but it's not practical to be dressed like a princess for partying at the reception. People do that with shoes a lot at weddings. But it's so stupid if it's beyond your means, i.e. don't buy 2 incredibly expensive dresses if you can't afford it. Or if you're pawning the cost off on someone else like parents or so. It makes sense if you want to walk down the aisle in a dress that you don't have to worry about getting in the way later. It's pretty common to have a second dress if your first one is strapless or really puffy, or some other shit that would be inconvenient to party in. That said, the second dress is usually a lot cheaper, basically just something white that you can dance in. From what Op said, I'm guessing this bridezilla went for 2 of the first kind. Clearly never been to a Chinese wedding. 2 dress minimum if you want to be taken seriously. Others have already explained how some brides wear a big, formal gown for the ceremony and pictures, and a simpler, more free-moving dress for the reception to dance easier in. But it can also be for cultural reasons. For example, many Chinese brides may wear a traditional red gown for their ceremony and swap to a Western, white dress for their reception. Religious ceremonies as well may require a certain dress like shoulders and arms to be covered, so brides wear a full-sleeve dress for the ceremony and swap to a more revealing dress for the reception. My coworker married a crazy bridezilla. I'll try to just hit the bullet points of what happened leading up to, during, and after the wedding, but it's still a lot. 1. The moment he proposed, she lost her sex drive. According to him, she also basically stopped acting like the woman he fell in love with and started acting like her real self. Which was batshit crazy. 2. A week after he proposed, she quit her job because her full-time job was now planning the wedding. The wedding was horrible, I'm getting there. 3. She had a fight with his mother because the bride demanded the groom's mom pay for half the wedding but get 0 input and wasn't allowed to contribute to the guest list, which was 95% the bride's friends and family. 4. Brid, who is 30 years old, subsequently egged her future MIL's house. 5. When bride and groom had a spat about the egging, he went to the work the next day and she shaved her head and sent him video of her screaming and sobbing as she buzzed her hair off in the bathroom. I worked with him, he showed me the video when he said he had to leave, and I strongly urged him to have her assessed by a psychiatrist. He made a dumb joke about sexy with a crazy girl is the best kind and I pitied him. 6. Wedding was in a pool, clubhouse, in summer, it was much too small for the 150 plus people they invited. Someone forgot to turn the AC on until after the place was packed. A lifeguard showed up in a swimsuit to turn it on, but it did little given it was already sweltering. 7. 2 rows of chairs in the clubhouse were ribboned off with reserved signs on them, so no one sat in them. They were later occupied by the 6-seated bridesmaids, leaving about a dozen chairs open once the wedding started. The one groomsman stood by the groom and didn't sit. Elderly people were left standing or reduced to sitting on the floor as there was no way to get to the chairs once the ceremony started. 8. Bride showed up 90 minutes late, having been unhappy with her hair, wig, and makeup, so she took it all off and did it herself, so all the guests are standing for the 1.5 hours waiting for her. Groom was literally standing at the altar sweating his ass off in a wool suit in the South's high summer, and was clearly not sure if she would show up. He looked like he felt sick. 9. When bride showed up, she burst into the clubhouse, marched down the aisle and snapped at the officiant, 2. Hurry up and get started. 10. During the prayer while the religious groom had his head bowed, she turned to wave at everyone. I don't pray, so I was looking up. Then she told her mother to go get her some water. She drank a bottle of water during the prayer and kept grinning and waving at people in attendance, paying zero mind to her groom in front of her. 11. When the ceremony was over, tables were crammed into the clubhouse and apparently only family and immediate friends of the bride had seats at tables. The rest of us were going to be standing outside during the reception. So I didn't see a dance, a speech, the cake cut, nothing. 12. The food was served outside, in the southern US July heat with bugs everywhere. The bride made the groom go get her food over and over. He meekly stood in line with the other 150 people, until people insisted he go sit and let them get food. Nope, she told him to get food, so he said he had to be the one to get her food. 13. She never left her table, never greeted any of her guests. 14. Apparently they had a massive fight as they were leaving the following day for the honeymoon, bride laying all the failures of the wedding she planned at him and his mom's feet. She threw his luggage out of the car and tried to drive to the airport by herself, but he had their tickets and jumped on the hood to stop her from driving off in his car. 15. He got fired about a month after the wedding because he kept showing up late, leaving early, and leaving in the middle of day, usually because she called him with some crisis. 16. 1 year after the wedding, I got a thank you note for my wedding gift, which was signed by just the bride with a note that said, as you may have heard, Ryan and I have had bumpy start in our first year as a married couple, and we're separated now. Thanks for the lovely gift. They divorced a couple months later. Somehow I'm more angry at other people for enabling her behavior than I am at her for being a human pile of shit. Telling young men that women be crazy. Or worse, crazy women are the best because sex her leads way too many men to enter into and remain in abusive relationships with psychopaths. Most modern women tend to get warnings about controlling and abusive behavior from men. What do men get? Nothing but a wink wink nudge and a, if you're getting sex sometimes, then all behavior is to be excused, when staring down the barrel of some seriously disturbing behavior. Our society needs to change on this front. I was practically in tears trying to explain to my male coworker that his girlfriend is showing signs of being an abuser and please use our company's free 10-session therapy offering to see someone in private about this to get a professional's opinion. The fact that his cat, normally friendly to strangers, runs and hides and behaves strangely when his girlfriend is around, and she has made Italian mobster-esque threats like asterisk, I accidentally kicked your cat the other day. You should probably buy me that purse I want. It would be a shame if something worse happened, wouldn't it? Asterisk. I begged him to imagine me saying these things about a boyfriend of mine. But he just couldn't see it. It had been drilled into his head that any female attention is good attention, especially since he's kind of a shy, nerdy guy, and women be crazy, and so this was just something he had to put up with. He's moved away, but I still check his Facebook and pray that I don't see her mentioned. I have performed a few ceremonies that came about because things fell through for whatever reason. Only one of which I had to walk away from. I had received a call from my sil that one of her friends was supposed to get married and the priest had passed away the week before. They didn't want to change the date and move anything, so they had asked if she knew anyone who could help out. I said sure. When is the wedding? It was supposed to be in an hour. Okay, I was on my way home from work where I had finished up an important meeting. I miss meeting in person, and was reasonably well dressed, so I called home to say I was going to be late. When I arrived, the happy couple had looked at me and asked if I had proper priest's vestments. No, I don't, and if I did, I would probably not be carrying them in my car. The bride had asked if I was able to go buy some and come back. I told her that I wouldn't begin to know where to buy something like that. The groom then told me that if I can't even try, then maybe I should leave. I did. My sil told me they cornered a priest at the church and told him he had to marry them or they would sue the church for a breach of contract and that it was the moral thing to do. They divorced 9 months later when her, surprise, baby was a different ethnicity than he was. Didn't help that he had a side piece as well. As someone who worked at a women's formal wear shop in one of the wealthiest suburbs of Dallas, dear Lord do I have stories. Edit 2. Wow. Thanks so much for the awards smile. Edit. Sorry everyone, I had to go back to work not at a formal wear shop and didn't realize this would blow up. The store I worked at was a women's formal wear store, so I have plenty of bridezilla, prom mom and pageant mom, a whole different breed, stories. More than once we had mothers physically fighting over dresses for their daughters. Including 2 moms who were sisters and came to blows because their respective daughters ended up wanting the same dress. It was sad because they all came in together for a prom shopping day. It ended with them being thrown out and banned from the store. Then there was the crazy pageant mom who walked herself into the back room where the special order gowns were kept and hid all the gowns for girls in the same pageant. The store worked very closely with various pageant organizers, so it wasn't unusual for us to dress every girl in a pageant. This mom found the rack for her pageant, took the tags off every dress except her daughter's, and mixed them into other random special order and restock racks. It was a huge store that did tons of business, so the back room was just covered in racks and racks of dresses. If someone hadn't seen her leaving and checked the surveillance cams to see what she was up to, we probably would not have found all the dresses. The worst moms who weren't bitchy rude moms, so many of those were the 40-something yoga moms who'd spend the entire time body shaming their daughters. There was even one yoga mom who, instead of playing chaperone while her daughter and her friends tried on dresses, spent the entire shopping day trying on prom dresses herself, and telling her daughter's friends how if she went to their dance everyone would totally mistake her for a student. Mind you, her daughter and friends were like 13 years old and shopping for a junior high formal. None of the girls ended up finding a dress and the lady's poor daughter looked near tears the entire time. Thankfully she came back a week or so later on a school night with an older lady, Grandma Asamedli, and found a dress she really liked.